You mentioned earlier that we were doing this tech conference back in September, and we're in our Ecamm headquarters. Everything is going along swimmingly, and all of a sudden, Cox Cable decided to just not work in the middle of this important event. There's a couple thousand people like ready to see what's going on, and normally these things happen. It's a blip. It's a 5 minutes or 10 minutes blip or whatever. No, it was like the whole rest of the day. So I streamed the entire second half of a multi-thousand person conference with an iPhone 12 because Speedify kept it going.
Oh. You saw part
really?
of it? Cool.
Nice. All right, we are famous. You want to say hi to everybody? Now you're on the video. It's a wave. That's the camera right there. Nice. All right. We are going back to look at this guy's house. And it has a lot of white lights. It's nice. I like the wreath. Oh, we didn't notice what's going on in the basement window. It's snowing.
Takeaways are, first guys, get started. If I look back at my original lives, they are awful. They're terrible. But we all start somewhere and we all get better. And every time you go live and every time you get on camera, you're going to get a little bit more comfortable.
There he is. Hey, Christian.
Hi. I think that's where you've got to be a little bit creative. You've got to kind of jump through the screen, and the only way you can jump through the screen is, I think you've got a Peroni like I do.
I do have a Peroni.
And in a few minutes, I think, or maybe now, we're going to open it, but we can share the exact same beer together and we can talk about it. And all of a sudden now, we've reached each other at a deeper level.
But it was like a hard drop. Stream ended. Concurrent viewership halved or thirded. Is if you lose internet connection, even if you have a dedicated,
how fast they go. Yeah,
they'll switch to Netflix. There's too many entertainment options. So I was sitting there like the first time it happened. What can I do? And I looked over at my backpacks of the gear that runs on Speedify. You paid for a year of it. You can use it on any computer or device. So I just pulled out my one of several hotspots I have, hooked it up, cranked up Speedify, and it has never been a problem since.
And lo and behold, you've got one microphone in there, you've got two dongles in there, you've got an Ethernet there, and you've got Wi-Fi running on the thing as well. If only we had some software that we could bond all those signals together and broadcast over. Hey, guess what we did? We started using yours. Others I don't think are available, but we haven't used others. But what we did was we used the Speedify software at a command line level. So it's not running a whole UI which is starting to drain resources. It's really very, very base level. And the really clever people at the BBC got it all working. And we're now presenting whole programs every single day of the year have been presented using this technology. All our weather reports from our weather presenter are done on them.
And we're actually at an hour here, but if you don't mind, I'm happy to keep going. I won't.
Yeah, I mean, this build's going to be done in like a minute, so. But here's the build. I don't have a power cable, unfortunately, or I don't have one readily available, but this is what it looks like.
Nice.
Good to go.
We're using software like Speedify to bond our internet connections. So we're using both the iPhone 12's cellular connection, and it's connecting to this Android phone in my hand and using its Verizon connection. So hopefully we get good video even though we're walking around in West Philadelphia. We also talk about stuff like, how to run your business with live streaming. And I think Nate's gonna have a lot of insights. You gotta slide over that way. You're about to walk on the railing. A lot of insights because he's Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Speedify Live. We got a little feedback going on here. Mute this computer. The show where we talk about everything that's live streaming. We talk about, the technology behind live streams. We talk about how to produce episodes of live streams. And we talk about stuff like how to promote them, how to get people watching them. Today, in celebration of the Comcast internet outage, we're going to talk to you about how we do our IRL, our in real life streaming. So let's do it. Instead of sitting here in the studio or whatever, we can just pick this up and Ryan can take it from me and we can walk around. And I will tell you how we do our IRL streams. Right, so maybe let's come back and let's look at this for a second. Let's look at my studio setup from this side. So my normal streams use this setup. We got a Mac Mini. It's one of the new ones with the M1 processor, so it is plenty fast. For a camera, I normally use my iPhone, what you're filming on here, running the Camo app. And this is what I'm looking at during the stream, right? Whatever streaming software we're using, some notes on what to talk about. And of course, Speedify itself. At this second, it looks like Comcast is back, but it's been a strange day. Got a Stream Deck here. Catch this thing. And these things are neat little devices by a company called Elgato. Every button is in fact a little display. So as you press buttons, it changes. So based on the app you're in and things, it shows buttons. So instead of messing around the computer, you can quickly poke a button and make whatever change you need. Change scenes, change cameras, whatever. And then I got lights, LED lights all around to give the interesting effects in the back. But today we're live streaming, IRL streaming, totally different setup. So we can come on out of the studio and check out the Speedify office. I think I've shown you around before, but we have lights. This place is slowly coming together. I don't know if we have the nice stools, fruit, pleasant place to work. Ryan is lucky to work here, whether he knows it or not. The conference room. Whiteboard table we can write on. Very stylish. We love that. The problem with this room was acoustics. The echo was terrible. So we actually built, and you can buy these, but these are foam-filled sound-absorbing panels that we built, which just sitting here on the floor have kind of changed everything for us. But we'll get them mounted up on the walls, probably one on the ceiling, and makes a huge difference. So, you're not here for a tour of the office. I promised to tell you about our IRL streaming. So let's talk about how we do that. First, there's the software stack we use. iPhone 12 Pro, so we get the good cameras. And on that we're running Speedify, which is our application for combining multiple internet connections. So in this case, the cell phone has its own built-in cellular, and its Wi-Fi is connected to this Android phone's hotspot. So it really is two cellular connections on one phone, thanks to the miracle of Speedify. So here's a screen capture, actually off my phone, of a live stream test. So it's got the two cellular connections, and it divides the traffic between them packet by packet, right? When it needs a speed boost, it'll actually use both connections at the same time. And before you go live, you can run this live stream test. It's built into Speedify, and it'll tell you You can handle 2K. You can only handle 720p on this internet connection. Or the internet's too bad to live stream. Better to know before you go live and embarrass yourself. So there's that. On top of that, then we run Larix Broadcaster, which is a nice little app that does an RTMP stream up to Restream Studio. And we change cloud software a fair amount, but it's going up to Restream, which then distributes it to our Facebook, our YouTube, our Twitter, wherever you're watching, it got there through that. So kind of big stack of software. But the hardware, let's go look at the hardware. And there's Ryan. Good job, Ryan. So as I said, iPhone 12 Pro, right? That's the one with the 3 cameras, and it does really nice video quality. Mounted on this gimbal. So this is a DJI Osmo 3 gimbal. It's not even the latest thing. They're up to 5 or 6 now. But this was $90, and it makes a huge difference. It stabilizes the video. Here, move the handle around a little. See? He's able to shake his hand and stuff, and it keeps the video pretty smooth. So that gets rid of the shakiness, right? When you think of cell phone video, I think most people think of that shaky, blurry video that most of us get when we're running around trying to film like this. But it doesn't have to be like that. If you stabilize it, you get much smoother pictures. And since all of this is going over the internet, it's getting compressed into digital video. And most digital video has certain bitrate hits, 3 megabits, 5 megabits. And that's basically describing how many changes it can describe in a given amount of time. So the steadier the video it is, the less changes and shaking it needs to describe, so it actually has more bits available to fill in more details. And you just get higher resolution, more detailed video, simply by not shaking the phone at all. For audio, we're using these wireless Rode mics. They're the Rode Go 2 mics.
Trying to show this thing.
So this little box plugs with a USB cable into your computer, your phone, your iPhone. So in this case, into the iPhone's Lightning port. And then each person gets mic'd with a little microphone like this. Somewhere on my belt here, I've got a little tiny box. And one of these things supports 2, so you can mic up the person you're interviewing, yourself, and it's pretty nice. So we are live streaming here. I'm getting blinded by the sun. So if you have questions, comments about the setup, about Speedify, about Ryan, you can just post them and they'll get relayed to me here on the phone. So that's that. So I am looking forward to hearing your questions and comments. So how many internet connections can Speedify handle? Well, it's basically how many internet connections can you get into your device. So on an iPhone, easy to get Wi-Fi and cellular. If you're tricky, you can add via USB another Ethernet. We played some games with an iPad and managed to plug a USB hub into it on the USB-C and then plug 10 cell phones off that, and they all showed up and worked. So the software can actually handle up to 30 internet connections, believe it or not. So how do we know this? So we test with crazy rigs like this. So we can put 10 cell phones together and hook them all up. We know most of you are, lucky to have 2 or 3 internet connections, but got to make sure it works. So on a regular basis, we will test with 10 internet connections, line up the phones. Have to admit, the truth is when it comes to cell phones, putting 2 cell phones with the same carrier right next to each other
gains much less than you might imagine, right? They're close enough in frequency to potentially interfere with each other. They're going to the same tower. If that tower is slow, then everybody connected to it is slow. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of gain from using 3 carriers. You know, in the US, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. That's fantastic. But when you start trying to use 3 AT&T phones at the same time, you rarely get that. All right. Should we head back to the studio and start answering questions?
Wesley W. asked if we're using Speedify currently for this stream.
I believe we are. We should be.
We are.
All right, we're back. All right. Oh. All right. It seems I wasn't being told what comments and questions we had. So let's get back to this. All right. Nope. You guys there? All right. All right. Gloria loves the live streaming feature. Yeah. We added that when we started this show, right? It was really important to us to eat our own dog food. And that's what we're doing here, right? So once we started live streaming and asking ourselves, man, what kind of video resolution are we really going to get here? That's when we realized we needed a live streaming test. So I think that doing the show has actually benefited the software. So Miles is asking whether it's possible to test your performance from another device. Yeah, we do that all the time. We'll have someone else watch the stream. We actually have a couple test accounts. Earlier today, Ryan and I were streaming to our unofficial test account, going up and down stairs and stuff. And actually, Ryan was going up and down the stairs, and I was sitting there watching on my PC to see what kind of performance he was getting. And it was pretty great. All right. Gloria's asking whether the USB hub would work with Android 2. I don't know. I have managed to plug in USB devices into Android phones, and it's worked. In the ancient past, sometimes as soon as Android saw something on the USB, it would turn off its Wi-Fi, which was super frustrating. I'm hoping that got fixed. Steer is asking, did you guys try it with an Android setup too? Yes, but not today. So this phone is my Android. It's a Google Pixel 4a. I'm very happy with it. I run Speedify on it all the time. And it's got a decent little camera. It's not quite where those top end iPhone Pros are. Is the iPhone on Do Not Disturb? It should be. So here's what I did. It's super important. So, in fact, I wish I talked about this. The worst thing about live streaming from an iPhone is if you get an incoming call, even if you don't pick it up while the phone is ringing, video stops. Terrible. So after talking to the nice people at Camo, they suggested, and I did it, and it worked great. I used the Shortcut app on iOS, and I set an automated job to Tuesdays and Thursdays, 15 minutes before I go live, just set my phone to Do Not Disturb. Doesn't even ask me. If it's about time to go live, my phone goes to Do Not Disturb. And, I have to remember in the evening. I could make another job to turn it off, but I haven't. The really important thing is that I don't get interrupted.
It turns the brightness down.
Yes, I also made turn the brightness down, and that's because of this IRL streaming. It's not important when I'm using it as Camo because that's plugged into the computer and powered. But here when I'm walking around, battery matters. So for those of you who remember our first live stream where we went to the Miracle on South 13th Street, 45 minutes in, I ran out of battery on my iPhone. And what turned out was if I drop the screen brightness down to its minimum, as I did for the next stream where we went to City Hall, I was able to go for an hour and a half and never ran out of battery. It turns out that your screen's brightness uses more power than the software and Speedify and the Wi-Fi and the cellular put together. So although other things, power consumption matters, it's not that much. All right. So Wesley says that he's used Speedify quite a bit. Works wonders. I recently come across OpenMP TCP. How similar different is Speedify, if I'm familiar with that? All right, so MPTCP, multipath TCP, is a sort of open standards-based attempt to do what Speedify does. It has no sense of cost awareness. Okay, tell it you can only use one internet connection, or you can tell it it can use all your internet connections. And if you tell it you can use all of your internet connections, then it uses all of them as much as it can. So Speedify is smart, right? It's got levels, what we call priorities in the software. Always means you can use it all the time. Secondary means try to use it a little less. If you need it for a speed boost, if you need it to stay online, use it. So by default, we put cellular there in that secondary. So as you start using more internet, we try to fill up your Wi-Fi. And when the Wi-Fi is filled, then we start bringing in the cellular and get you the speed boost you need, but we're using as little cellular as we can. There's no concept of that in MPTCP. I think there are a lot of other weaknesses, but that's just sort of right in the core. It doesn't have that kind of understanding. So that's my opinion of that. I think there are other weaknesses. Like I think it can only help TCP traffic. I don't think it can do UDP, where Speedify does everything. TCP, UDP, ICMP. We handle all of it. All right. A little out of order, but cute little Stream Deck. I use Touch Portal on old tablet, but the Stream Deck looks nice. Yeah, there's lots of ways to do this. I know there, for OBS and stuff, there's iPhone apps to use, turn it into a remote if you're using a PC or a Mac, and you're able to use your phone for something else. All right. You're welcome, Wesley. All right. So, as I said, we're live. Keep the questions coming. Let's see. And it does look like Comcast has been holding up ever since we went live, but it has been a brutal day of internet coming and going, which normally doesn't affect me because I've got a tethered iPhone that Speedify will fail over to, and I've got an Android phone making a hotspot that Speedify on my PC will switch to the second that internet goes out. Except today we were testing IRL streaming, and so Ryan took all of my cell phones and was walking around the city streaming video back to me. So it was actually a very, very painful day for me. All right. What else? What upcoming streams do I have? I should probably make an announcement about that. And you'd think I would have been prepared enough to put it in my script. All right, so today, of course, is the IRL streaming setup. March 9th, we're doing office hours again with the developers. I think it's going to be Mike Kane this time, who's responsible for online? Yeah. So what just happened, Ryan?
I don't know.
So we somehow we toggled off in the Restream Studio. And there you go. We ran out of battery. So that was a disaster. And the reason was too much time testing, which is sort of the paradox of the whole thing. The Go mics, let's talk about what's wrong with them. On iPhone, have to plug in on the Lightning port, which means there's no way to use a battery pack along with it. So when you do run out of battery, you run out of battery, right? We had the phone on a charger ahead of time. But there you go. So let's get back to questions. So by the way, so we're back to Camo tethered to the Mac, and here we are. So for the Raspberry Pi setup, would that work to connect two phones, one to stream, one to check comments? So the beauty of the Speedify Raspberry Pi, you plug in the two phones and it bonds across them, and Speedify can manage. So it might be doing, half the video on one, half the other, some of the comments on one, some on the other, or maybe it chooses to put the video on one, the comments on the other, but you don't have to worry about it. It sorts it out. You just do what you want. You give it the internet connections you have. You run the apps you want to run, and it figures out how to sort them, and it may even change its mind in the middle. All right. So Larix Broadcaster stops streaming for me when I go from using it in the background to going back to it, but only from landscape mode. When I'm in portrait mode, that doesn't happen. Man, the software. Software is so buggy. I've been pretty happy with Larix Broadcaster, although it's very simple, right? They've kept it simple. It doesn't actually show you comments and stuff. That's why I was using the different phone to show it. All right. So then Wesley has an excellent piece of feedback. You could try a MagSafe battery. I could try a MagSafe battery. That works great with the Go Rode mic. So you can stick it on the back. I have one here somewhere. I don't know where. Of the phone to charge it, and the Go still works. Except then it's too heavy for the gimbal. Right? This thing stops working when you have the extra weight of the battery hanging off it. So there is just no winning. I've tried it, and It was tough. What else did I miss here? Yes, the phone died. All right. So this has been a bit of a wreck of a stream. Still blame Comcast. Although it does seem at this second here, I'll show this. We actually are streaming over Comcast. Let's there we go. There you go. So there you can see it. So this is the Speedify on this computer. Ethernet is plugged into a Comcast cable modem, and as you can see, it's zipping along doing, a lot of data. The Pixel is the hotspot on the cell phone. The one marked cellular is actually the iPhone plugged in on USB. That's the camera here, running Camo. It can also still be the tethered. So I've got these 3 internet connections, and as you see, Ethernet's marked as primary, so it's using it first. It is going fast enough to supply all my internet needs here. So it's sending 0 on the Pixel or the cellular. But the second that internet goes out again, it'll pop on over and use them. And down here, it shows the live streams, right? So Speedify in streaming mode is smart. It's watching for RTMP, it's watching for WebRTC, it's looking for voice over IP, and if it sees anything that looks important, it'll prioritize it, mark it as a stream. So it'll do a couple things, right? One, if there's background traffic, your Mac is updating its software or something, it realizes the stream is more important. It'll put our packets ahead to make sure the stream gets through. It also gets much more aggressive about using cellular if it sees any problems and it wants to protect it. All right, Wesley. Wesley suggests that I yank the Ethernet. What's the worst that can happen, right? I mean, this stream I've already been knocked offline. So let's see. I don't know if the cable's long enough that I'll be able to pull it around. You can really see. Yeah, sure. Sure hope I'm still online. There you can see the Ethernet has been yanked. Cord's not quite long enough to get in view of the camera, but it is gone. And so it is now streaming me across the 2 cell phones. And I will see if I can get it back in the hole without unplugging the computer, which would be par for the course today. So I just plugged it back in. I think you guys heard that little snap. And right, so the Ethernet shows up, and there was a couple seconds there where it doesn't trust it because it didn't work very well. And then it starts realizing, no, this thing's great, and it's cheap, and it gives it more traffic. And hopefully we did. All right. It's Miles. What's a minimum number you want to see in kilobits per second? It depends what you're doing. Totally depends what you're doing. You can do a lot with 1 megabit, but I wouldn't go live streaming. It's sort of 480p video, right? 5 megabits, you get a pretty decent stream quality. But if you're trying to do 4K, you're not wanting 25 megabits, right? Which is a megabit, obviously, is 1,000 kilobits. All right. Better yet, please explain Please explain what those numbers mean. All right. So the first number here is how much is coming down from the internet to this internet connection. So right now, 2.9 megabits, kind of jumping around. The second number is how much is going up. The number of stars is based on basically we're doing what's called the MOS calculation, looking at the latency and the jitter and the loss and trying to figure out whether or not this is good enough to do a voice call on. So it's actually not looking at bandwidth, it's just looking, is this reliable enough? Could you do sort of a voice over IP phone call with decent audio? And so actually all of these connections right now, it says are pretty decent. We got a couple graphs here. The usage shows the total amount of data on each internet connection. And the green line is the total, right? So you see, the green line's at the top of the blue line when it's only using the blue line. But when it was actually bonding using the two cellular here, you see this gap where the green line's much higher than any of the internet connections. And that is bonding. Latency, this graph, I'm getting a little more technical. If you're not interested, you can completely ignore this, is how much time it takes to get a packet to the internet and back over that internet connection. If things start going really wrong, you can see it spike up. I think this increase probably actually isn't anything going so wrong, so much as when the video actually goes over them, they get a little busy. The last graph is loss. Hello. This trackpad is the worst. And this should normally just be zeros. A good internet connection does not lose any of your packets. Even 1 or 2% loss is enough to cut your speeds in half. It really is. And 10% loss, the internet's slow as molasses. I mean, it's not a working internet connection if it loses half your packets, right? Because you send a packet, you get a reply. So if if you lose half the packets, that's actually 3/4 of those conversations are broken. All right. So here's another question from Gloria. Do you use Restream Studio for comments on screen? I tried using OBS NDI output to Restream Studio, but my screen turns green. We switch tools all the time here. But yes, today I am using Restream Studio, and I'm using the comments on screen there, and I'm clicking them to show them on the screen. And it works great for me. We've done other, sometimes we use OBS, sometimes we use eCam. Wesley talking about when I pulled the Ethernet, he says there was 2 seconds of frame freeze, but the audio stayed. So that's interesting. Obviously, I want it to be perfect, but if the audio stayed, I think that's pretty much proof of concept, because this thing would have broken completely if I'd just yanked it otherwise. All right. So let's just, says that March 9th, we're doing the Speedify Live office hours. I think it's Mike Kane, as I said. iOS user interface, Mac OS developer. On Thursday the 10th, we are getting way out of the studio, and we are going to do an episode on raising horses for mental health treatment. We are going to a horse farm. On Tuesday the 15th, we're doing van life for your family with Chris Morley. Once again, these episodes are pretty popular. There are a bunch of people who are living in RVs and vans and using Speedify to combine multiple cell phones and whatever Wi-Fi they can get when they pull up to a coffee shop in order to get good enough internet to work. So that is that. So I think we have a couple exciting things coming for you guys. All right. I think we're at 5:40. I am just going to call this an episode. Thank you, everybody. I will see you online, and hopefully I will see you guys on Wednesday the 9th when we will be back to answer
whatever questions you've got. So thanks a lot, and good night.